Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Moa, aka Swedish Whiskey Girl, and today I am so grateful to be able to try 3 single malts from quite hidden and rare single malt distilleries, I would say. And of course, first of all, thank you to Instinct PR, Pernod Ricard and Secret Speyside for sending me these samples. Because today I'm gonna have a little try of Longmorn 18, the Caperdonich 25, and the brace of Glenlivet 25. So they've set up this range of single malt whiskies in their portfolio that might be some distilleries that you don't come across as often, perhaps because they go into blends, but of course some of them do not exist anymore. So Longmorn is one of those that you can find single malt from it, but not that often. It's also sometimes it's described as the distiller's malt because there's some different master distillers that have Longmorn as their favorite. It also has a really funny bottle because on the bottom it has like a leather kind of base to it, and it's often said that it is so that you can come home and have a sneaky wee whiskey before you go to bed and no one will hear you put the bottle back because the leather base kind of softens the noise. And then of course we have Caperdonich, which is now closed, unfortunately, but it was known as Glengrant No. 2. And these are all Speyside distilleries, before I forget that. It was known as Glengrant No. 2, and due to the Patterson crisis, it unfortunately had to shut. And finally, we have Brace of Glenlivet. So when this whiskey was distilled, it was known as the Brace of Glenlivet, but it's nowadays known as Braeval. Back in the days, there were quite a few different distilleries known as the of Glenlivet, because it was a very kind of prestigious name, and it's an interesting way of kind of trying to get your distillery to be marketed in a way. So yeah, very excited to try these. And some of them do sit at quite a high price point, but it is one of those whiskies perhaps that when you kind of want to give a lovely gift to someone, or maybe to yourself if you have the money, or it's a really special occasion, this might be some good ones for that. Oh, and of course, alongside these 3 distilleries, you also have Glenkeith, which is part of this range. But you can all check them out online, see if there's anything that catches your eye. And of course, they are available in a few kind of selected places, previously only available in duty-free, but now for the first time available on kind of your normal markets, and I know they're available on Master of Malt if you want to check them out there. But we'll start by having a little look on the Longmorn 18. Oh, actually, before we do, just want to say that if you are curious about these whiskies, you should go have a little look at their website, because it's quite a lovely, like, they built the website really lovely, and I do appreciate that quite a lot. It's just this imagery and quite a big like storytelling element to them, so yeah, go check that out. So we're going to start by having a look on the Longmorn 18, which is bottled at 48% ABV, and it's been matured in American oak barrels and hogsheads. Of course, a lot of people use the term barrels when talking about all casks, but technically the kind of umbrella term for it is casks, and barrels is a specific size, so it's between 180 and 200 litres, I believe, and then hogsheads is kind of reworked barrels where you add extra staves to make it slightly bigger, so it's around 250 litres. So it's both of those that have been used to make this whiskey. Let's start by having a nose. Ooh, very fruity. Like peaches and orange marmalade. Yeah, very fruity, very fresh fruits, but fresh that goes towards tropical. They're quite dense, so like quite marmalade-y as well. Yeah, I think it's that kind of denseness and sweetness from the marmalade mixes with the peach, because peaches generally feels very fresh to me and quite juicy. Almost slightly, like, because of the denseness, it makes me think of something like wet autumn leaves, or something it's not necessarily very earthy or leathery, but it's just like a breeze of it. So like it's kind of damp leaves, but just very subtly. But let's have a little taste. Slàinte mhath. It's slightly more oaky on the palate, but still very fruity. So the first thing I got was the fruitiness, but then it kind of landed and this oakiness came out. But this kind of, how to describe this? It makes me, because it's quite dark and quite almost like mossy, the oakiness, it makes me think of like folklore, and when someone walks into this dark, mysterious forest and it's just quite damp and the trees are just hanging over you, that kind of woody forest vibe. But the fresh fruits are still there. It's almost more like pears and peaches on the palate, not so marmaladey. That oakiness really, really kind of, oh, it's so nice. It's the kind of perfect oakiness that goes with the fruitiness in a really lovely way. It's just, I don't know, maybe it is that I watched the website and got quite intrigued by the storytelling elements, but it's almost like it feels like a fairy tale in its flavours. Yeah, like a fairy tale mix of like mystical forest and tropical fresh fruits. That might just sound ridiculous, but yeah, I don't know. It's just something about it that feels very kind of mysterious. I think that's the thing. Let's come back to it, but we're going to move on to our Caperdonich. And I believe this one, I was struggling a bit to find it on their website because it didn't specify exactly what it was. But I believe this is the peated one. So Caperdonich did both unpeated and peated malts, and this is the 25-year-old peated. And I believe it's been matured in American oak hogsheads. And I believe this one is bottled at cask strength and sits at 45.5% ABV. So let's have a look on the nose. It's a lovely bonfire note to it. But there is something underneath. What are you? Sometimes it's just like some aromas are hiding underneath the smoke and you just kind of want them to come out. Sometimes I am very tempted to kind of pour my whiskies and leave them sitting for a bit just to give them a chance to breathe. But I know not everyone does that, so I feel like the more kind of good way of doing my reviews are to try them when I've just poured them, and then of course if I go back to them, see if anything's changed with a little bit of time. But it's some whiskies are definitely worth giving a little time in the glass. This has a sweetness to it, and kind of a fresh note, so maybe like green apples, that kind of fresh note that feels very, very fresh and light. And a bit of that kind of juicy pear. But let's have a little taste. Stanjava. So fresh and so... That really surprised me. The first note is super, super fresh and light, so definitely like green apples, but not so much the flavours green apples, but more the sensation of when you like bite into a really juicy green apple, because it's just so fresh and light, it kind of just washes over you, and then it's like this smoke just kind of appears. It's quite a woody, quite a bonfire-esque smoke. It smells more like grilled pears now on the nose. A very fresh sensation. The mouthfeel makes it feel so approachable when you first drink it, but it really changes halfway through because it just turns and that kind of smoke just rises. Quite a spicy smoke. So if you threw a little bit of cinnamon perhaps in there, maybe a bit of cloves. But it's not, the smoke isn't a punch. It's just like this kind of, it just comes and grows, but it doesn't grow too much, if that makes sense. It's definitely that kind of fresh fruitiness mixed with that bonfire smoke. And charred pears on the nose. And finally, we're going to try the Brace of Glenlivet, the 25-year-old, or from the distillery now called Braeval. And this is also bottled at 48% ABV and from first fill American oak barrels. Let's have a look on the nose. Wow, that's sweet. And quite coconutty. It's if someone put this in front of me and it was a dessert, I would eat it straight away. It's a gorgeous note. It feels very golden, quite lush and quite, yeah, quite like, I don't know, it's tropical, that kind of coconut and maybe a bit of like honeydew melon and a bit of oranges and that kind of golden, quite dense tropical notes, but very much refined. Like it's a stream of this golden notes without anything just kind of jumping out or being too sharp in the edges. If I'm just saying what my initial thought was when I noticed it, it was like, this is what I want a 25-year-old from first fill American oak casks to be. Just golden and lush. But let's have a taste. Slangera. Exactly the same on the palate. It feels golden. It feels, if you've ever watched someone make a cocktail when they put gold powder in, and you can just see it swirling around, and it's like, it makes the liquid seem denser and it makes it feel just like magical. That's what in my head it feels like I'm drinking, because it's just, it is golden and it does have an oakiness there, but the oakiness is quite like, it's those tannins that come up and the slight flavour of oak, but it's just to lift the wonderful flavours from those wonderful casks that's coming out. So it's that kind of tropical fruitiness. Quite a dense mouthfeel, but tropical. It's a little bit of coconut, but like more like honeydew melon and oranges and maybe apricot just like mixed into one. Yeah, if I were to describe this, just initial thoughts, it's really what I want a first fill, like an older first fill American oak whiskey to be. I'm also, because I'm just so fascinated by bourbon casks or American oak casks at the moment. I just really appreciate one when I find one that is exactly what I'm looking for. You just get all this tropicalness, you get such a lovely like mouthfeel of it, you get, yeah, I really enjoy this one. I'm also gonna go back and have a quick little taste of the others and then we'll wrap it up. This is the Longmorn, and the Longmorn's also fruity, but it's almost like that more mystical forest freshness mixed in with a little bit of tropical notes. Because it does feel fresher, it's not as dense tropical as the Brace of Glenlivet. Very pleasant nose though. Yeah, slightly lighter on the palate than the Brace of Glenlivet. But it is that fairy tale mystical forest meets fresh fruits. There's like pears and peaches with a tropical twist to it. And the Caperdonich. Quite a purple smoke. Does that make sense? It's like plums on fire. But also green apples. And that same sensation, it's just so fresh at the start. It's almost like you can't get the smoke and then it just turns and the smoke just lands on you, and there's this lovely bonfire smoke amongst, like in the middle of the fruitiness that just mixes in together. There's like this big smoke where you just have all the aromas swirling around. And I find a little taste of the Braeval Glenlivet. Almost has a bit of a waxiness on the nose now as well. Very juicy, but then it has that slightly drying finish of spices. But I do think the Braeval Glenlivet is very well rounded. And if you like those American oak flavours, they're quite rich and lush, you probably like that one. And if you want a bit of smoke and fruitiness that just like swirls around and really kind of entwines, and of course from a distillery you cannot get a hold of anymore. I mean, Caperdonich in Gaelic even means the secret well, so it's like when the secret well's run out of its spirit, then you'll never get it again. So that's what's quite nice about distilleries that are lost, but of course also the sad thing about them. Yeah. And then you of course have the Longmorn, if you like a good fairy tale of a whiskey. Yeah. I'm so grateful, like I said, to be able to try these. They're all stunning. And the Braeval Glenlivet just touched my heart a little bit more, and I just love the kind of fairy tale experience I got from the Longmorn. And these are all available on some exclusive stockists like Master of Malt, and they've previously only been available in duty free, but you can now find them online. I'll put the link in my description below if you want to use my affiliate link and support me at the same time. I would of course be absolutely thrilled if you would, but it's totally up to you. But I hope you've enjoyed this video as always, and if you did, please feel free to give a thumbs up of course, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. But I hope you've all had an absolutely wonderful day. Slàinte mhath. Skål!